My name is Vellani, and I am thrilled and honored to be part of this event today. I am a mom of an 18-year-old girl, Ariana, who's currently away in Spain studying music composition. I am married to Vellani, a wonderful fellow. I am the Senior Manager of Cash Management for TD Commercial Bank, and I'm a Certified Financial Planner. I am also the CEO of the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce, and I am on the Port Moody Police Board and the Act 2 Child and Family Services Board. But one of my favorite things that I'm involved with is the Professionals Alliance. And I get to work alongside some amazing people, some of which are Anissa Karamali, Nazira Premji, Shanaz Jamal, and Rosie Karim. Now, that's enough about me. Let's move on to our speakers. It is now my great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Saira, and for this, I'll need my glasses. Dr. Saira is a registered clinical counselor and the founder of Dragonfly Wellness Centre, an online hub for personal growth and spiritual development. Dr. Saira specializes in depression, anxiety, family harmony, and stress management. She served on the board of directors of the Canadian Mental Health Association for 4 years and is an active volunteer in her community. She has a Ph.D. in Transpersonal Psychology and has delivered 2 TED Talks. Dr. Saira's YouTube channel is called Dragonfly Wellness TV. Through Dragonfly Wellness Centre, Dr. Saira and her team provide mental health support through individual counseling, groups, immersive workshops, online courses, and free educational content. As much mainstream psychology overlooks spirituality, family values, and community context, Dr. Saira has decided to specialize in serving clients from diverse backgrounds who are ready for change and also want to include their cultural values and spiritual beliefs in therapy. Dr. Saira started out as an entrepreneur 15 years ago in her home office in Calgary and is now the clinical supervisor for a team of wellness professionals all across Western Canada who serve clients around the world. Having experienced her own mental health challenges with depression and food addiction, Dr. Saira has insight into the daily struggles with living with mental illness and what it takes to thrive personally and professionally despite chronic long-term challenges. She now lives in a small town on Shuswap Lake in the Okanagan in British Columbia with her husband, 2 kids, and their newly rescued dog. I would now like to turn this over to Dr. Saira.
Hi, it's Dr. Saira, and I'm actually here today to talk to you about something that I've never been asked to talk to about before, actually, publicly, which is my journey as an entrepreneur. It's kind of something that's always happened in the background. I haven't really talked about it with people outside of my very intimate circle, so I'm excited to be sharing with you the journey. Now, before I get started on my story, I have to say that I'm going to tell it like a story. So I'm going to say this happened, then this happened, then this happened, but to be honest, it was not a straight line. Like not even close to a straight line. It was like a big jumble tumble mess of like coincidences and opportunities and gut feelings and failures, a little bit of successes here and there. So though it sounds like, oh, I did this and then I did this and then I did this, that's not actually how it happened. But I'm going to share with you some kind of milestones that moved me forward and things that I learned along the way. And hopefully that can inspire you with your own ideas and your own business your business dreams. So just want to say that up front. I have to say that I've been thinking about being an entrepreneur for a long time. So when I was in high school, I did all kinds of different jobs. And I learned that about myself, that I didn't really like being told what to do. I don't like it. And, but you know, I mean, we have to be told what to do. And I was a really good student, so I always followed the rules. But I chose to go into a field that I felt there'd be room for private practice. And that was really because I was thinking ahead. I was thinking ahead to the time when maybe one day I would have a family and children, and I didn't want to be stuck at a 9-to-5 job. My mom was a single mom and she worked overtime in many jobs, and I wanted to be the mom that was kind of available to my kids. And so even when I was going through university, my trajectory, the things that I was choosing to do were so that I could eventually be at a kind of job where I could set my own hours. So that's how it all started. What can I do that will set my own hours? And I had this secret wish that I would be like a therapist to the stars. like, so I could charge lots of money and like help people and like not have to worry. So that's how it all started back in my undergrad. Things changed and I actually fell in love with psychology, just fell in love with it. And how amazing to be able to make a living at something you love doing. I think that's something that not everybody gets, and so I'm really aware that that's a gift that I've been blessed with. So when I first kind of kickstarted into my career, actually before I kickstarted into my career, I had a baby. And that was, I got married and had a baby just as I was graduating with my PhD, and it was all happening around the same time. And so I didn't really like launch into the world of work because I was pregnant and then I had a baby. And actually what pushed me into the world of work was my postpartum depression, which I didn't know I had at the time. Wouldn't believe anybody who was trying to tell me I had it, but I just thought I was a really bad mom, and so might as well just go work because I'm not very good at this mom thing. And so I went into work, and I worked at an agency. And while I was there, I realized like how many things I would do differently and how many restrictions and limitations there were. There was so much red tape that I wasn't actually able to help people in the way that I knew I could. And so that kind of planted a seed in me that maybe there's another way to do this. Plus, I was working a 9-to-5 job, which is exactly what I didn't want to be doing. And somebody else, like I was basically, my paycheck was paying our nanny. And so I stopped working full time and I started doing this kind of entrepreneurial thing. And to be honest, I've basically tried to have one foot in since then. And so that might mean, 1 or 2 clients in a week. That might mean these kind of one-off events that would happen in Calgary or Vancouver or wherever the people around me were mustering to get me some work. And honestly, I'll tell you about a time, we used to have these monthly workshops. I used to do a monthly workshop in Richmond every month. And I would have anywhere from 1 to 3 people show up to my workshop. And I took a loss every time. But it was my way of kind of staying in and kind of validating my calling and my work. I didn't want to give it all up just because I was a new mom. And so that was the way that I handled it for those early years when my babies were small. And then during that time, I got a business coach. And that business coach really shifted my perspective on money mindset and my value and my rate and what I'm allowed to charge, and really started challenging me. And one of the things he said that I'll never forget that I want to share with you, he asked me this question. He said, if there's 2 dentists and they're doing the same job, and one of them is charging $150 for the procedure, and one of them is charging $500 procedure, which one do you assume is the better dentist? And that hit me. And I thought, oh, right? It might not be that they're actually better, but when you price yourself at a certain point, people make assumptions. They think you're good, and they'll keep paying you if you are good. And so that really challenged my poverty mentality, growing up with a single mom, and just really shifted me around to actually starting to think like a business person. When my daughter finally made it to kindergarten, that's when things really took off. That's finally when things took off, because I had a chunk of time in the day that was not about children, and I could just go for it. Since then, the first big step that I did was I moved out of a home office into an office space. And what that did was it forced me to bring in a certain level of income to pay the rent, right? And so it kind of got a fire under me to get marketing, to get out there and to kind of put myself out in the world. Now, there was challenges along the way. I've realized I need to be the star of the stage. I'm not very good at sharing the stage. So partnerships and that sort of thing, it's like, if I'm the boss, it works. If I'm not the boss, I don't like other people being the boss. And that's okay. That's something in my personality that I've learned to accept. Also, the other 2 challenges I want to just drop here quickly. One is what I call the non-believers, like people who just didn't think I could do it. And they would always tell me why I couldn't do it and why I should get that government job with a good pension and good benefits and stop trying to do this entrepreneurial work. They're even telling me that today. Like my paycheck is way bigger than I'd have at a government job, but there's that story about security. So I would call those the non-believers. And then finally, there's people in my circle who have always treated me small. No matter how big I get in the world, they're always going to treat me small. So being sure that I wasn't discouraged by those types of interactions, that's what's made me who I am today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saira. It was wonderful to hear from you. And now I have the pleasure of introducing you to Leila Khashavji. Leila Khashavji graduated with a Bachelor of Kinesiology from the University of Toronto in 2016, With a passion for health and nutrition, she started Happy Pops, all-natural ice pops. She appeared on the season premiere of Dragon's Den in 2018. Since its launch, Happy Pops has catered over 1,000 events and is now available online for home delivery and in retail stores across Canada. I'd like to now turn this over to Saira Sabzaali.
My name is Saira Sabzaali, and I'm the founder of Happy Pops, an all-natural frozen treat company based in Toronto, Ontario. Growing up, I wanted to be a doctor, so I went to the University of Toronto to study kinesiology. I was doing your typical pre-med thing, volunteering in a hospital, working on a research publication, and preparing for the MCAT. When it was time to graduate, I had a master's lined up, but it really didn't feel right, so I turned it down. My parents gave me 3 options at the time. I could either work in the family food business, I could work for someone else, or I could start my own business. I decided I was going to start my own business. In school, I had learned all about ingredients, and I realized a lot of products that claim to be healthy are actually not. Reading product labels should not be this complicated, and I wanted to create a product that everyone could enjoy. I love frozen treats all year round, and I thought, what if I made a better for you popsicle? My parents got me some used equipment off Kijiji to get started, and I started making these ice pops, all by myself. Washing the fruit, cutting the fruit, pureeing the fruit, pouring it into molds, packaging it. And after an exhausting day, I would try and sell these and market them. It was a lot. I started selling these in the most basic packaging. Clear bags, plain sticks. It really looked like homemade, and it would really bother me when someone said, "Are you making these at home?" When in reality, I was making them in a commercial space. I would go to events and try and spread the word about Happy Pops. We would get a few catering orders, a dozen here, 2 dozen there, and I hoped that one day it would lead to more opportunities. Before I knew it, we were doing events at Google and Facebook, at RBC, and at law firms. And there was one question that I always get asked: where can I buy these? And we were not in any stores at the time. So we whipped up some quick packaging, a sticker we got made at a local print shop, stuck it on a bag, and decided to start selling to a couple local grocery stores. The product sold, and it sold all year round. I knew we had something, and I decided, why not pitch it on Dragon's Den? After all, isn't it the Canadian entrepreneur thing to do? Dragon's Den was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences, but it was also one of the best experiences, and really, the opportunity got me outside of my comfort zone. I didn't take a deal in the end, but it gave me the confidence to continue building Happy Pops. Right after that, we launched proper packaging for grocery, and we went on the journey to becoming a national brand. It wasn't an easy one. For every 10 stores we would approach, one would say yes. 4 stores became 40 stores, and then a couple of offices became 50 offices, schools, and fitness studios in Ontario. We were off to a good start in 2020. We had contracts lined up, we were in a lot of the schools, and we were starting to make our way into grocery stores. However, in March 2020, everything changed. Everything changed. Events got canceled, schools closed, grocery stores were just trying to keep the essentials in stock, and 70% of our revenue was gone overnight. We realized this was going to be a temporary new reality, and we needed to make this work, so we continued to try to grow in grocery by attending virtual trade shows and shipping samples across the country to buyers, hoping it would land to the right person and someone would give us a chance. There's been so many delays and price increases over the last 2 years, which has made running a business even more challenging. We are now in a few hundred stores, but it feels like we are just getting started. I wanted to end off by sharing 3 things that I've learned and have really helped me, and maybe they will help you too. Don't compare yourself to others. In the early days, I was often looking at social media and seeing what other brands were doing. I decided this is our story and I'm writing it. Second, make time for yourself. There's always more work that you can do. And one of the things that has really helped me is blocking off time for things that I enjoy and things that make me feel good. For me, that's meditation, working out, and spending time with friends and family. And finally, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. The highs are high, the lows are low, but celebrate the small wins. It's those little things that if you celebrate them, it makes it so much easier to keep going. And this has really helped us to keep our team engaged.
Thank you so much, Leila. And now I have the opportunity to introduce you to Qudsiya Sadat. Qudsiya is the co-founder and head of brand and product at Radish, a cooperative delivery startup that is owned by its restaurant, driver, and consumer members. Prior to Radish, Qudsiya worked as an AI developer at Desjardins Lab and a research assistant at McGill University's Robert's Male Reproductive Systems Lab. She graduated with a Bachelor of Science from McGill University in 2017. And when she's not working at Radish, she enjoys long walks with Panda, her canine companion and best friend. It is now my pleasure to turn this over to Qudsiya.
Yalamulat everyone, my name is Qudsiya Sadat and I'm super excited to be here today with Mary, Dr. Saira, Leila, and Rabia. Thank you for letting me introduce myself. I am currently the head of product and brand at a startup that I co-founded here in Montreal. We're called Radish, we're a food delivery cooperative, and it's been a little less than 2 years since we've launched, right at the start of the pandemic in March 2020. And since then, we've been growing quite strongly since. We have several restaurants on board. We have several restaurants waiting to get on. We're a team of about 15 to 20 people. That includes myself, the management team, drivers, marketing, development, sales, our operations team. And currently I manage mainly the marketing development team, but like many entrepreneurs wear several hats. So at the same time, I can be trying to figure out what beanie to buy. So how did I get to where I am today? I graduated in 2017 from McGill with a bachelor's in pharmacology. At the time, I really wanted to become a doctor. My parents were both doctors back in Afghanistan. I aspired to be one, but I didn't get into med school. And so I wasn't really sure what to do. But during my university times, I did go to tech events and hackathons with my brother and my friend, where I would do the pitches, where I would give some input on design because I didn't know how to code. And so I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do comp sci for a semester. Comp sci for a whole bachelor's, but ended up being just a semester because my friend had asked me to join his team, his data science and AI team within Desjardins, and as an intern. And so I joined, even though I really wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. And so there, I taught myself how to code and design, of course, with the help of my friends, with the help of my colleagues and my brother. And I specifically was working as an AI developer. And so we'd work with business lines to essentially create tech solutions for them. During that time, I also co-founded a startup called DataCup. And I think it was like the first of its kind, where we released anonymized financial data to the public to come up with algorithms to provide like some solutions. And so my role in it directly, I was responsible for developing the website, for designing it, for managing the Slack channel so people could submit their algorithms to make sure that there are no bugs or errors, and also mentoring the team that we had for marketing and development there. And so it was a huge success. We had like over 300 people participating. And at the same time, it got to a point where we were facing some challenges, such as politics, discrimination, bureaucracy, and so we couldn't move further. And at that time, I wasn't really sure what to do, but I was like, if I can create something this cool, or so I thought it was that cool, then I could potentially do something more. And so at the time, my friend, him and his father were in the restaurant industry, still are. They noticed how with Uber, DoorDash, Skip, the delivery service was just getting worse for restaurants. Drivers would come without bags, there'd be spills. If there was like a concern, often the restaurants would have to pay for it. There was like no transparency in terms of whether we're being charged. And of course, we all know the extremely high fees. And so we were like, you know what? Why not start a cooperative in food delivery? And so we were working at Desjardins, which is Cooperative. And so we understood like the values, what it was. And at the same time, we're like, if we're gonna go against Uber, we can't go against them using the exact same business model. And so this just made a lot of sense, especially given that we had the restaurant background, we had the business background, we had the technology background. And so that essentially brings us to where we are today. We have a team of drivers, they're professionally trained. We have a full-fledged development, dev products such as the website where people order, the restaurant tablet to get orders, the restaurant back office, the driver dispatching system, the driver's app, and yeah. I also wanted to mention that we are a delivery service, but the reason like that we're here, like at the heart of it, is that like we're here for the restaurant industry. Like many of us, we come from the restaurant industry. Like I have relatives in there, my co-founders have relatives in there, they're in it. And so we noticed how in general, like like in terms of technical knowledge, the restaurant industry doesn't necessarily always have it. So we're like, we want them to be able to focus on the food. And so some areas where we're also trying to help out is in like HR, where we're trying to help them find staff, especially during the pandemic, which is really hard. In terms of marketing, a lot of times restaurants don't they don't know social media, and so like we help them on board onto those channels. In terms of finances, in terms of grants, during the pandemic, some restaurants were filing grants, but they were in English or French, which are languages that not all people necessarily speak. And so, yeah, we're like, that's essentially what Radish is. That's essentially what I do. And if you're ever interested in learning more, we're on our several social channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And of course, if you ever want to know more, feel free to reach out to me personally through my LinkedIn. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Kutsia. And now I have the pleasure of introducing you to our fourth and final speaker, Rabia Danani.
Hello, my name is Rabia Danani and I am the founder of Siempre Eco. I would like to start off by saying thanks to everyone for having me here and for giving me a chance to share my story, my journey regarding my business, entrepreneurship, and life in general. So let's go back to the very beginning. I have lived in 6 countries. So as a child, and I think till my preteen years, I would globetrot a lot with my parents. The one thing that I saw in common in all those places was, firstly, there was a lot of misuse and wastage of resources. Number 2, there was no sense or very minimal sense of environmental sustainability, at least at the time. And number 3, if someone were to live a more eco-conscious lifestyle, it would be very difficult to afford said lifestyle. So I knew that there was always a disconnect between affordability and sustainability. I knew that there was this disconnect. I knew that there's something there that doesn't go hand in hand, but it was always at the back of my mind. I never decided to do anything about it because school, life plans, so it was never on the forefront of, my journey until the COVID-19 pandemic happened. So just like many others, I graduated in the peak era of the pandemic in spring of 2020, and I found myself having a lot of downtime at home because I felt lost, life didn't go as planned, obviously, everything was shut down. So I decided to do something about that problem that I've always had, to do something about affordability and sustainability. So it all started off with just me sitting feeling jobless, and I decided to take it up as a summer project. And I remember asking my dad to let me raid his closet for organic cotton shirts. And I wanted to start off by making beeswax wraps, because beeswax wraps were something that I had introduced to my household a year prior. We used to get them from Amazon, and they were pretty pricey. You would get a pack of 3 for $30, and sure, it is a genius product. Basically, for those who don't know, beeswax wraps are essentially a replacement for your plastic cling wrap and Ziploc bags. They are a fabric-based wraps, organic cotton made with beeswax, jojoba oil, and pine resin. So they're super compostable, super breathable. They keep your food fresh for twice as long. And that is something I had brought into my house a year before my business started. Super expensive stuff. And I remember my mom telling me, saying, hey, our life cycle for the beeswax wraps is over. Do you want to order more? But that's when I realized that why would I want to pay $30 for 3 wraps when I've had this problem in my head all along and I can try to make something. So that's where the raiding of the closet happened, and I think I used up about $500 to experiment. It took me about 3 weeks, but I finally got it right, and I had made my own very beeswax wraps for literally half the price, half the cost, and I was able to share with family and friends for a fraction of the price that I would find on Amazon, for example. So it started off like that, and it made me feel powerful because I realized that I had the agency and I had the possibility of actually doing something about this problem. So it started off like that, and then I slowly began to expand my product line by doing more research and by doing more experiments. And soon enough, within 8 months of my business, I had about 5 to 6 products in my store online. I am currently in about 27 retail stores across Canada. And now that I'm talking about it, it really makes me realize how far I've come. Because I'm someone who has imposter syndrome on the go, literally. And for someone like me, it's very hard sometimes to really believe in myself. And I don't mind being open about it, because that is something that has been an issue for me, especially during the pandemic, when everything is so difficult for so many people. And it's not the ideal, I would say, it's not the ideal circumstance for a lot of people to be doing a lot of shopping either. Nonetheless, I have gained a lot of success in my business, and that has come with a lot of hard work, with a lot of sleepless nights, and unsurmountable support from family and friends. Now, because I started my business in COVID, during COVID actually, it wasn't a very generic or very stereotypical launch. I had to pivot from the very beginning, and I had to alter a lot of my strategies from the beginning to be able to suit this era that I was going to be entering. And that meant more digital marketing, that meant more relying on the gig economy, and by that I mean influencers, and just really relying on word of mouth instead of other things. Because first of all, when I started, physical retail stores were closed for the longest time ever. People were not shopping as much, and there was just a lot of challenges that I could just see starting right off the bat. So this is something that I had to ingrain within my business strategy from the very beginning, and it has shaped a lot of my leadership strategies and a lot of my business ideas, just as they are. So doing that has really helped me out. So yeah, if you're watching this, I would highly suggest relying on the gig economy, for example, and influencers for a business like this. I think other than that, I have really just learned how to be more resilient, because not only forget COVID, but in general, as an entrepreneur, you face so much rejection, and there is just so many no's out there, and you have to wake up every day and really consciously believe that you're looking at the bright side of things, the silver lining. That, I think, is one of the basics of being an entrepreneur. And I think the resilience that I have learned out of it is incredible. I've definitely become more patient as well. And I think that is where I am at with my journey right now. And yeah, I'm happy that I'm able to solve this problem with products that I make myself and by teaming up with local organizations in Edmonton and in Canada and across North America. So this is where I'm at, and I really hope you enjoyed listening to me. If you have any questions, I would love to connect with you.
And now that we've heard from all of our amazing speakers, we now get to sit down with them and have a question and answer session. Thank you for joining us for our question and answer session today with our panel. We're going to start with our first question, which is, what motivated you to become an entrepreneur? Dr. Saira?
So for me, I just didn't want to work for anyone else, pretty much. That's what it was. I had a series of difficult bosses and I wanted to set my own hours, and that's how it all started for me.
Great. And Layla?
For me, it was the ability to create a product that I think needed to exist.
And Kutsia?
For me, it was I created like a mini startup within my own company. Sorry, not my own company, within my previous, the company that I worked with. And so I was just like, if I can do it there, then I could possibly go out and start my own company. And so I was really testing my skills.
Great. And Rabia?
For me, it was simply just, taking my passion and just turning it into something bigger than my household.
Excellent. And what support did you have from family and friends? Dr. Saira?
It was mixed. I'll be honest, it was mixed, because there's certain people in my family, and mentioned this, that really like the steady, secure job that's going to give you benefits and can have a long-term, and so it's like we were talking two different languages. They weren't understanding what I was trying to do. Even to this day, they don't really know what I do. They don't really think I have a job or anything. They're like, what do you do all day? So I think for me, the support really came from my husband. He was like the number one supporter for me. And he did all the things in the business that I didn't want to do or know how to do. He'd figure out how to do it and then do it. And so I think that was my number one supporter, was my husband.
Lovely, thank you. Layla?
I definitely had support from my family. My dad's an entrepreneur, so he's always still been there to support me, and so was the rest of my family. And then in terms of friends, I've definitely had some friends support me and more continue to support me as the business has grown. So that's been very helpful.
That's wonderful to hear. And how do you align your business goals with your financial and personal goals? And if there's a conflict, how do you resolve them? Rabia?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's not a black and white answer. I am very early in my journey as well. So I think in terms of where the company lies and my personal values, they go hand in hand. But I often find myself finding it difficult to have a work-life balance, for example. As an entrepreneur, you're working all the time. So I think finding that balance has been really difficult for me in general.
What issues did you face with municipalities and or red tape? What cost you time, money, and dissuaded you, especially in the early days or when you were planning growth? Dr. Saira?
So what dissuaded me was that I was a newbie. Like, I had no experience. I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have anyone to look up to and say, oh, that's how you do that. And so it was really just like forging a whole new trail in a forest. I'm like out there with my machete, like trying different things and getting exhausted and giving myself all these cuts. So there were a lot of those kinds of like internal blocks that I had to overcome of can I do this? Is this something people even do? Is this something women do, right? Because I saw in my field, I saw a lot of men doing this work, but I didn't really see women and mothers kind of thriving and moving to leadership positions the way that I was seeing men do it. So all of those things were challenging for me.
And Kutsia?
Yes, on our side, we're like, I started a food delivery cooperative, and so we're pretty much going against Uber. And so you can imagine just like, I guess, how crazy that sometimes sounds. And so for us as well, given that we are a cooperative, we had to pretty much like reimagine everything. it wasn't like we had like an ink and we could go out and just like start one, right? Start one online. We had to like go through lawyers, pay tens of thousands of dollars to like come up with this like new corporate structure. And so that was a challenge in the beginning. And then with delivery, we had you'd be like delivering at midnight, or like, you know, a restaurant would maybe forget an item, and just like it can be little things that add up over time, or just challenges like figuring out like which t-shirt or polo to buy, and you go through like 5 different suppliers. But yeah.
Thank you. So where do you get your grit, tenacity, and confidence? Dr. Saira?
Sometimes I don't think I have grit. Sometimes I'm a puddle on the floor. So I think there's these weird rushes of energy that happen sometimes, you know, when you're in the middle of a project and you're just going and you're going, and suddenly it's 2 a.m. and you're done, right? So I feel like I get those waves of energy throughout like projects, and that's where it comes. I don't even know where that comes from, so I can't really answer the question. But and then there's other days that no matter how focused or determined I am to get through, I just can't do it. So it's kind of like following that, follow the energy vibe of whatever's flowing and whatever's available to me, and that's what kind of gets me through.
Great, thank you. And Layla?
I would say growing up in extracurricular activities, from competitive gymnastics to debating, has really given me that confidence and that grit and tenacity. And then on a regular basis, even just sometimes you have to look back to see how far you come, and then you just become more confident in what you're building as a business owner. So for me, it's walking into the grocery store and seeing Happy Pops there, and you know, I know how hard I worked, and I'm more motivated to keep going despite the challenges.
Great, thank you. And how do you manage stress? Kutsia?
Yes, there's like always work to be done, so I do try to take the time to always schedule either like friends or like walks by myself. I find sports has so far really helped out. I did try volleyball. I got hurt. I got right back up. And taking walks with just myself or friends really relieves the stress.
Fantastic. And Rabia?
Well, I normally have some rest time, you know, chalked in my Google Calendar almost every day. So that's something I do for myself. But I've also realized that when I start my day with a cup of chai just by myself, it just sets the tone for the day. And the days when I don't do it, my whole day is sort of off. So that's something that I like to start my day with. But other than that, I normally go boxing 3 to 4 times a week just to release that tension. And I think that's really helped me out.
That's fantastic. And have you ever had imposter syndrome, and how did you deal with it? Dr. Saira?
I think so. Imposter syndrome, when it comes up for me, and it didn't just come up once, it comes up regularly. And what I've learned is that when that imposter syndrome is coming up, it's because I'm kind of distracting myself from the next big risk or the next big opportunity. So it's like, I'm like, oh, but can I do this? I don't know if I can do this. And it was one of my mentors that said, you're wasting your time with this, move on, right? And so I've become really strict with myself when those thoughts start coming up, to be like, oh, what am I avoiding here? What am I not wanting to actually do, and sit and feel like weird and bad about the fact that I am doing it. But it takes vigilance to kind of catch those thoughts.
Great. And Layla?
I have to be honest, I have not had experienced imposter syndrome.
Excellent. That's fantastic. That's great.
Or at least it hasn't felt like that.
That's great. That's unusual, and that's wonderful. Kutsia?
Yes, I feel like I'm facing imposter syndrome as I sit here right now with everyone, because I'm like thinking about what I'm saying, and I'm like stumbling on what I'm saying. How do I get past that? I think realizing that there's a reason like I'm here today, and there's a reason like I got to where I am because of my skills, because of what I was capable of doing. And yeah, I try to remind myself that, and I find what helps also is talking to friends and family about it. And so once you get that like external validation from them, you do tend to feel better, because you do definitely tend to forget your accomplishments. I find it's easy to do that.
Absolutely. And Rabia?
I think I experienced it a lot in the first 6 to 8 months of my business. And I think it was really important for me. And I was grateful to have such a strong support system around me who were always there to tell me otherwise. And I think the way I've come out of it is just by looking back at where I started and where I am now. And sometimes I'm also taken aback because I can't believe that I did that. So I think it's really important to just trust yourself and just see your growth, because that's when you realize that, you're way better than you think.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts and your inspiration with us. And I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. And that concludes our EntreprenHERship Tea 2021. Thank you to all of our amazing speakers and the organizers of this event. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you, and make it a great day.